Welcome to this emotional English story designed to help you improve your listening, reading, and speaking skills. In this story, you will follow the life of a young girl whose world changes the day her brother leaves and never comes back. Through simple language and powerful emotions, you will learn new words, understand real-life conversations, and feel deep connections. Listen carefully, read along, and repeat after the sentences to practice your pronunciation. This story will not only help your English, but also touch your heart and make you think about love, family, and understanding in your daily life and growth. My name is Lena, and I am 26 years old. I live in a small apartment in a quiet part of the city where life feels slow and calm on the outside. Every morning, I wake up early, make a cup of tea, and sit by the window before starting my day. From a distance, my life looks peaceful and simple. But inside me, there is a space that has never been filled. It is a space connected to someone I lost many years ago. Someone I still think about almost every day. I have an older brother. Or maybe I should say I had one. His name is Armin. He was 3 years older than me, and when we were children, he was my whole world. He was not just my brother, he was my best friend, my protector, and sometimes even my teacher. When I was afraid of the dark, he would stay with me until I fell asleep. When I had problems at school, he would always find a way to make me smile again. He was strong, confident, and full of life. Everyone liked him, and I admired him more than anyone else. At first, everything in our life felt warm and happy. We lived in a small house with our parents. It was not a perfect life, but it was enough. We had dinner together every night. We laughed, we shared stories, and we supported each other. Those were the days when I believed nothing would ever change. But slowly, things began to feel different. As my brother grew older, he started to change. At first, it was small things. He spent more time outside and less time at home. He stopped talking as much during dinner. Sometimes he looked tired, even when he had done nothing all day. I noticed these changes, but I did not understand them. I thought it was just part of growing up. But then, the distance between us became bigger. He stopped telling me about his life. He no longer shared his thoughts or his dreams. When I tried to talk to him, he would give short answers or say he was busy. The brother who once stayed up all night talking with me was slowly disappearing. In his place was someone quiet, someone distant. At that time, I felt confused and a little hurt. I did not know what I did wrong. I tried to be closer to him, but it felt like there was an invisible wall between us. The more I tried, the further he seemed to go. My parents noticed it too, but they did not talk about it much. Sometimes I heard them whispering late at night. Their voices were soft, but I could feel their worry. Something was wrong, but no one wanted to say it out loud. Then one day, something happened that I will never forget. It was a normal afternoon. The sun was bright, and everything looked peaceful. I came home from school, expecting to see my brother in his room or sitting in the living room, but the house felt strangely quiet. At first, I thought he had gone out again. That was not unusual. But then I noticed something strange. His door was open, and the room inside looked empty. I walked slowly to the doorway and looked inside. His clothes were gone. His bag was missing. The small things he always kept on his desk were no longer there. My heart started to beat faster. I ran to my mother and asked, "Where is Armin?" She looked at me for a moment, but she did not answer right away. Her face was pale, and her eyes looked tired. "He left," she said quietly. I did not understand. "What do you mean he left?" I asked. She looked away and said nothing more. At first, everything felt unreal. I thought maybe he would come back in the evening, like always. I told myself there must be a simple explanation. Maybe he just needed some time. Maybe he would return and laugh about it. But deep inside, I felt something heavy. That night, his chair at the dinner table was empty. The house felt colder. And for the first time in my life, I realized something important. My brother was gone, and no one knew when, or if, he would ever come back. That night, I could not sleep at all. I kept looking at the empty bed across from mine, hoping to hear the sound of my brother's footsteps in the hallway. I told myself it was just one day. Maybe he needed space. Maybe he would come back in the morning with a simple explanation. But morning came, and the house was still quiet. At first, everything felt confusing, like a dream that I could not wake up from. I went to school, but I could not focus. My friends were talking, laughing, living their normal lives, while my mind was somewhere else. Every small sound made me turn my head, hoping it was him, but it never was. Days passed slowly. My parents avoided the topic. When I asked questions, they gave short answers. He just needed to leave. He will be okay. Don't worry too much. But their voices did not sound calm. They sounded tired and afraid. The more they avoided the truth, the more I wanted to understand. Slowly, the silence in our house became heavier. My father spent more time outside. My mother looked lost in her thoughts. And I felt like I was standing in the middle of something I did not understand. One evening, I decided to go into my brother's room. At first, I hesitated. It felt wrong, like I was entering a space that still belonged to him. But I needed answers. I needed something that could explain why he left. The room was almost empty, but not completely. There were still a few things he forgot to take. A book on the shelf, an old jacket hanging behind the door, and on the desk there was a small box. I walked slowly toward it. My hands felt cold as I opened it. Inside, there were small things, old photos, a broken watch, and some folded papers. I picked one of the papers and opened it carefully. It was not a letter, it looked more like a note. The handwriting was his. My heart started beating faster as I read the words. "I'm sorry, I can't stay here anymore." I stopped for a moment. The words felt simple, but they carried something deep, something painful. I continued reading. "I don't want to hurt anyone, but I feel like I don't belong here anymore." My chest tightened. I read the lines again and again, trying to understand what he meant. Not belong? How could he feel that way? This was his home. We were his family. Or at least, that's what I believed. That night, I sat on his bed, holding the note in my hands. For the first time, I began to see things differently. I remembered the way he stopped talking to us, the way he avoided eye contact, the way he seemed lost, even when he was at home. Maybe he had been struggling for a long time, and maybe none of us noticed. That thought hurt more than anything else. The next day, I tried to talk to my mother again. This time, I showed her the note. Her face changed immediately. She looked at the paper, then at me, and then she turned away. "You shouldn't go through his things," she said softly. "But I need to understand," I replied. "Why did he feel this way? Why didn't he tell us?" She did not answer. Instead, she walked to the window and stood there in silence. I could see her shoulders moving slightly. She was trying not to cry. At that moment, I realized something important. My mother knew more than she was telling me. "There's something you're not saying," I said carefully. She closed her eyes for a moment. Then she whispered, "Some things are too painful to talk about." Her words stayed in the air. Too painful. That meant there was a truth behind all of this. A truth that no one wanted to face. From that day, I could not stop thinking about it. My brother did not just leave. He left because of something serious, something that changed him. The quiet life I once knew began to feel like a lie. Every memory now had a question behind it. Every moment felt incomplete. Slowly, the truth began to appear, but not clearly. It came in small pieces, in silence, in fear, in things that were never said. And deep inside, I felt it. The real story of my brother had not been told yet. And I was the only one who still wanted to find it. Days turned into weeks, but the silence in our house did not change. If anything, it became heavier. It was no longer just the absence of my brother. It was the feeling that something important was being hidden from me. I could not accept it anymore. One evening, I found my mother sitting alone in the kitchen. The lights were dim, and the room felt quiet and heavy. She was staring at nothing, lost in her thoughts. This time, I did not hesitate. "Mom," I said gently, "please tell me the truth." She looked at me, surprised. For a moment, I saw fear in her eyes. "I already told you," she said. "He just needed to leave." "No," I replied, shaking my head. "That's not the truth." My voice was calm, but inside, I felt a storm. I walked closer and placed the note on the table in front of her. "He said he didn't belong here," I continued. "Why would he feel that way in his own home?" She stared at the note, her hands slowly tightening. "Something happened," I said, "and you know what it is." The room fell into silence again. At first, she said nothing. Then, slowly, her eyes filled with tears. She tried to hold them back, but this time, she couldn't. "I didn't want you to know," she whispered. Her voice broke, and I felt my heart sink. "Know what?" I asked softly. She took a deep breath, as if she was finally ready to open a door she had kept closed for a long time. "Your brother," she began, then stopped. For a moment, she covered her face with her hands. I had never seen her like this before. Not this weak, not this broken. "Your father and Armin had a fight," she finally said. I felt my body freeze. "A fight," I repeated. She nodded slowly. "It wasn't just a normal argument," she continued. "It was worse, much worse." My mind started to race. "What happened?" I asked. She hesitated again, but this time she did not stop. "Your father had very high expectations," she said. "He wanted Armin to follow a certain path, a stable job, a safe life. But Armin, he wanted something different." I listened carefully, trying to understand. "He wanted to leave the city," she continued. "He wanted to follow his own dream. But your father didn't accept it. He said it was a mistake. He said Armin was being irresponsible." I could almost see the scene in my mind. "They argued for many days," she said. "The tension in the house grew stronger. And then, one night, everything exploded." Her voice became quieter. "Your father said something he should never have said," she whispered. My heart beat faster. "What did he say?" She looked at me, her eyes full of regret. "He told Armin that if he didn't follow his rules, then he was no longer part of this family." The words hit me like a heavy weight. no longer part of this family. I felt my chest tighten. And Armand? I asked slowly. He left that same night, she said, without saying goodbye. The room felt cold. Suddenly, everything started to make sense. The silence, the distance, the sadness in his eyes. He didn't just leave. He was pushed away. Why didn't you stop him? I asked, my voice shaking. Tears rolled down her face. I tried, she said, but it all happened so fast. And your father, he was too angry. He didn't listen. I felt a mix of emotions rising inside me. Anger, sadness, shock. And after that? I asked. She looked down. We never heard from him again. Those words hurt more than anything else. Never heard from him again. For years, I believed my brother chose to leave us. But now, I saw a different truth. He left because he felt rejected. Because he felt like he didn't belong. I sat down slowly, trying to process everything. My whole life, I thought I understood my family. But now, I realized I had only seen the surface. I wish I had told you sooner, my mother said quietly. But I was afraid. I didn't want you to hate your father. I didn't want to break our family more than it already was. I looked at her. For the first time, I saw her not just as my mother, but as someone who had been carrying pain for many years. But that didn't change the truth. A deep silence filled the room again. Then I said something I had never said before. I'm going to find him. She looked at me, surprised. I don't know where he is, she said. I'll try, I replied. I have to. Because now I understood something clearly. My brother didn't disappear. He was lost. And maybe he was still waiting to be found. That night, everything felt different. I sat alone in my room, thinking about everything my mother had told me. The truth was heavy, but it also made things clearer. For so many years, I believed my brother left us without a reason. But now I understood. He didn't leave because he didn't care. He left because he was hurt. At first, I felt angry. Angry at my father for his harsh words. Angry at my mother for hiding the truth. But slowly, that anger began to change into something else. Understanding. I started to think about my brother in a new way. I remembered his silence, his distance, his tired eyes. Maybe he had been struggling for a long time, and no one truly listened. The next morning, I made a decision. I was going to find him. Not because I had all the answers, but because I needed to try. I began with the small things. I went through his old belongings again, carefully this time. In the small box, I found something I didn't notice before. A piece of paper with a name and a place written on it. It looked like an old address, maybe somewhere he once wanted to go. It was not much, but it was a start. Days later, I found myself standing in a different city. The streets were unfamiliar, and my heart was full of both hope and fear. I didn't know if I would find him, or if he even wanted to be found. For a moment, I almost turned back. But then I remembered his words. I feel like I don't belong here anymore. I couldn't let that be the end of his story. I walked slowly through the streets, asking people, showing his old photo. Some shook their heads, some tried to help. Time passed, and my hope started to fade. Then, just as I was about to give up, something unexpected happened. A small shop owner looked at the photo and paused. I think I've seen him, he said. My heart jumped. He pointed down the street. There's a workshop. A quiet man works there. He looks like this. I didn't wait. I ran. When I reached the place, I stopped in front of the door. My hands were shaking. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. There he was. Older, quieter, but it was him, my brother. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Time felt like it stopped. "Lena!" he said, his voice full of disbelief. Tears filled my eyes. "Yes," I whispered. We stood there, not knowing what to say next. Years of silence stood between us, but at the same time, something deeper connected us. "I thought I lost you," I said softly. He looked down for a moment. "I thought I didn't belong anymore," he replied. Those words hurt, but now I understood them. I stepped closer. "You were never alone," I said. "We just didn't understand you." He looked at me again, his eyes filled with emotion. Slowly, we began to talk. Not everything at once. Not all the pain, but enough to start again. He told me about his journey, his struggles, and how he tried to build a life on his own. It was not easy, but he survived. And I told him about home, about our mother, about the silence we lived in after he left. Days later, I asked him something important. "Will you come back?" I said. He hesitated. "I don't know," he answered honestly. And that was okay, because this time it was not about forcing him. It was about understanding him. Before I left, we stood together again, just like when we were children. The distance was still there, but it was no longer empty. It was filled with truth. When I returned home, I told my mother everything. She cried, but this time, her tears felt different. They were not just pain. They were also relief. Slowly, our family began to heal. Not perfectly, but honestly, and that was enough. Now, when I sit by my window in the morning, my life feels different. The empty space inside me is not gone completely, but it is no longer filled with confusion. It is filled with understanding. Because sometimes, people don't leave because they want to. Sometimes they leave because they feel they have no place to stay. And sometimes, all they need is someone to find them again. That is the lesson I learned. Do not ignore silence. Do not ignore pain. And most importantly, do not wait too long to understand the people you love. Because one day, they might be gone, and you may never get the chance to bring them back. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed this emotional English story and want to improve your listening skills, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, English Parlor. On this channel, you will find many powerful and easy-to-understand stories that will help you learn English naturally. Keep listening, keep learning, and I will see you in the next story.